This is episode 20 with international speaker, author, and expert on social media sales, Knebl. Hello and welcome to another episode of the UV Effect podcast. Thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it. In this week's episode, we have a fantastic guest by the name of Knebl. He is what you might call a social media sales revolutionist. I don't think that's a word. I'm going to use it anyway. And he has a book called The Social Media Sales Revolution, where he talks about, and what he really is all about, is taking the old school tactics of sales, cold calls, door to door, and taking it into the new millennium, teaching people how to use social media to make those same kinds of sales, but on a grander stage. Because what he talks about in this interview is how social media is such a better way of connecting with people. Because just as it was in the olden times, sales is all about building connections, being able to reach people, connect with people in order to make them feel like they're part of this, because that's when people will buy from you, when they know and trust you. And what social media does is allows you to connect with people on a faster and even more personal level, because you're really able to connect and you're really able to talk to people. You're really able to really get to know somebody. And without taking years and years to get to know them, you can just go on Facebook and learn everything you need to know about somebody just from their profile. So he really talks about how social media is just this brand new way of being able to make sales and a more effective way of making sales. We also talk about the pros and cons of it as well. We talk about how different kinds of people can use social media, because you have those hustlers, you have those old school traditionalists, you have the newbies, you have these different kinds of people that maybe don't really know how to utilize it the best way, or maybe they're interested in it, but they're just kind of confused, or they're just using it wrong right now and they just need some help. But he would basically talk about all these different kinds of people and how, if you're one of those kinds of people, how you can use social media to best and effectively work for you. Now, Mr. Knebl definitely knows what he's doing. He talks about social media on multiple different platforms. He focuses on Facebook and LinkedIn. He actually has more LinkedIn recommendations than anybody else in the rest of the world. So that's pretty crazy. When having this conversation with him, just talking about sales and everything like that, that was definitely really good conversation. But what was really the best part for me, it was the part that really surprised me. And that was when we were talking about, of course, unique value. We were talking about how someone can take their unique value and project that on social media in order to get sales and make money, of course. And we actually went a lot deeper than I expected to. We ended up talking about, of course, the mindset of unique value and what hinders us from being able to understand our unique value and then being able to promote that and share that. How we can then develop it, what we need in order to develop it, and what we need in order to be confident in it, in order to put it out there on social media and then make money via it. But yeah, we talked about quite a bit, and it was such a surprising and amazing conversation. And I know that you're going to be able to pull so much from it. He really shared so much. He's been in the business for a while, especially the sales business. He's been in it for such a long time. He really knows what he's talking about, and he really gives such in-depth detail on what you need to do, how you can do it. So much advice. Keep your pens and paper out, as I always say, and get ready to take some notes, because I promise you will. I was taking a bunch of mental notes while I was having this interview with him. That's just such a great conversation, and I hope that you will enjoy. So let's, without further ado, jump right in. See you there. Joining me today. Welcome.
Thank you, Gabrielle. It's wonderful to be here. You can get rid of that Mr. stuff. You can just call me Kev.
Okay, I will. I'm really excited to have you on the show today. I think what you talk about, what you share when it comes to social media and sales and that creative sales aspect, where, how in this modern time there's this way where people really want to connect with the person behind the product or the service. I think what you talk about there is very imperative, and important and crucial for this new wave of sales and this new way of connecting with people. So I want to just jump in straight with the questions and just get this ball rolling. Before we get into what you do, I want to know a little bit about you and how you got started with everything you're doing. So just tell us about your story and how you were able to find sales and that path.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking, and thank you so much, Gabrielle, for having me on your show. It's an honor. So what I used to do years ago was I used to be a piano player in New York City. Completely different line of work. Young, single, my hair was 18 inches long. This was back when the earth was cooling and dinosaurs were around, okay? So what happened was I actually met my wife. The way I met my wife, it was she booked me to play piano at her wedding to another man, okay? Now, there's a backstory there. We don't have time for that. So what happened was she never married that guy. She married me. So we got married. Now, this is back before Al Gore invented the internet, okay? So when she married me, I realized that late nights and smoky bars was fun as a single person, but not so good if you're going to be married. Mm-hmm. So I had to get a job. So back in those days, we didn't have LinkedIn, we didn't have Career Builder, we didn't have the internet. Mm-hmm. So you would actually open up the newspaper and you would look in the help wanteds to find a job. Right. The only job I could find, and you can find this no matter where in the world you go, is 100% commission sales. Completely outside of my comfort zone. There's nothing in the world I could imagine that would be more uncomfortable for me to go from being a piano player to being a salesperson. But I love my wife, so love will make you do funny things. So I cut off my 18-inch long hair, I got a job in sales, and I literally threw up every morning on my way to my first sales call. I was so scared. But I had a great mentor early who taught me, Kevin, if you're going to succeed in business and you're going to succeed in sales, you need to understand you're in the people business. So he said, focus on people skills, and that will enable you to connect sincerely and authentically with other people, and you'll do much better in sales. So I took his advice to heart. I studied that kind of stuff, and I became the top salesperson for 4 separate companies in 4 separate industries, including being the top salesperson in the world for an international consulting company in 15 countries. So I did very, very well in sales. And then I'll wrap it up by saying that in 2003, I got an invitation to get on LinkedIn 60 days after it launched, just through dumb luck. Wow. And I'm not a computer geek. Right. I don't have any tape on my glasses. So I opened up LinkedIn the first time and I said, oh my goodness, this is a Rolodex. This is a business directory. And the way that I had done so well in sales was by creating, nurturing, and deepening relationships. And I said, well, I'll use this in my sales process, never knowing that someday I'd become a speaker and all this other stuff. And I started using it in my sales process, and then the word got out, and people started asking me if I would speak and train. And now for many years, Gabrielle, I speak, my business is 99% by invitation and referral only. I do no marketing, no advertising. I just basically answer the phone. I don't say that to be cocky. I just say it because it's validation of what I teach. Right. But I'm kindly asked to speak in about 1 city per week all around the world. So on any particular day, I could be in Australia, London, South America. I just got home a few hours ago from speaking in Biloxi, Mississippi. Last week was Charleston. Next week is San Francisco. The week after is Indianapolis. So I get on my knees every day. I thank God that I get to do what I do. But it's really not about social media. It's about what you said. It's about connecting with people. So sorry for the long answer to your short question.
No. I think it's important to hear the whole story because a big part of like the UV effect and what we do normally in the podcast is we hear someone's story and we kind of see how it really correlates with a lot of what they're doing at this point. And that same goes for you with how, you learned how important it was that the important aspect of people when it came to sales, even if it was a cold call or, if it's walking up to a door and knocking on the door, it's one person talking to another. And that still works with social media and it correlates impeccably. And I think something that stood out to me when it comes to your story is this transition that came for you from going from, a sales job to now talking about, social media on a large stage, on multiple large stage every week. Yeah. I'm wondering how how that transition really happened for you in the sense of what drew you to the different aspects of social media, like LinkedIn and Twitter. What aspects of it made you think that this could be this viable opportunity for sales and then continue a career in speaking?
Well, I've always, different people are wired different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a very relational person. I love people. I like people. So, when I said that getting into sales scared me, it did. Yeah. I mean, I was used to playing piano. I could play piano for hours and that wouldn't scare me. Right. But talking to people, even though I love people, getting out into the business world, getting into sales was kind of intimidating to me. So what I did was I just kind of started realizing, let's not make this a big scary thing. Right. This is just talking to people, connecting with people. When I took off my sales hat, when I first got into sales, the whole concept of sales scared me. I made a subtle shift in my thinking, and it's going to sound goofy when I say this, Gabrielle, but I shifted from thinking about sales to more thinking about service. How could I serve people? How could I help people? And I know that might sound like kind of woo-woo, but I don't care. I don't care. Right. So I think the Lord put me here to serve. Now, I used to serve differently when I played piano than I serve now, but I'm still in the service business. So when I kind of shifted to serving, a lot of things in my life fell into place just very, very naturally. So I would basically, and I hope your viewers don't mind this, because if it's on my heart, I say it, but I just say, Lord, put the people in my path that I'm supposed to help, and I'll do my best to help them. You put the people in my path, and I'll just consider them divine appointments. And that's what I do. So, am I answering your question?
Well, I was actually, before we continue with it, because I actually, even though it wasn't quite the question, it still was a really important point that you made there. Because I really agree with the idea of being able to switch your mind, and especially when it comes to how you basically said it was from self to others, and I really love that because I think that's the key aspect in any person's a career, even if it's just you with another person in a relationship, whatever it is. I think that there needs to be, I think that for more success, there needs to be a switch where there's more of a focus on someone else rather than yourself, because then you have more of a reason to do what you're doing. It's not just, selfish reasons. It's now more about doing something for others. And I'm a Christian as well. My podcasters know that. My listeners know that. I told them that I would be talking about Christ and my religion as well. So I definitely, feel free to be open about it. And I love that you have been open about it because it's definitely on point. But so the question I was asking was actually what drew you, what aspects of social media really drew you to take it into the sales realm? How did you figure out that this was a viable opportunity for sales and also to build a speaking career on?
Okay, so I can answer that. So when I first opened up LinkedIn in July of 2003, which was 60 days after it launched, so it was, brand new. Right. I'm a very, very simple guy, Gabrielle. I'm not complex at all. I'm very simple. When I looked at LinkedIn, I said to myself, this is a Rolodex. Now, do you know what I mean by Rolodex?
Yes.
Okay. The reason I'm asking that is sometimes I meet people that are like 30 and under, and I have to explain what a Rolodex is. And I understand that, but you get it. Right, so a Rolodex is nothing more than a business directory. So the success that I had in sales up to that point was because I was always focused on creating, nurturing, and deepening relationships, which basically means learning about the other person, being of service, and creating a sincere relationship. Well, one of the aspects of creating a sincere relationship is to learn about the person. So follow me here. Prior to the invention of the internet, if you were going to learn about somebody, it would take a little bit of time because you couldn't Google them. There was no Google. Exactly. So it would come down to conversations, phone calls, maybe meetings, and over the course of time, you would learn about people, which would lend itself to building a relationship. Fast forward to 2003. In 2003, you open up LinkedIn, and now I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile. I'm seeing where you went to school, what you majored in, what organizations you support. I'm seeing all this information that normally would have taken me 6 to 12 months to learn about you before the invention of the internet. Now it's all right there, right? So to answer your question, when I first saw LinkedIn, I said, this is going to accelerate the relationship process, not cheapen it, not diminish it, but it's now giving me all the information that it used to take me a year to learn about you. If I have eyes to see and ears to listen, it's right in front of me. And then the first time I got on Facebook, I almost fell out of my chair because I went, oh my gosh, they're telling me the bands that they like. They're telling me, here's pictures of them, on vacation. Now, I'm not saying to be a weird, creepy stalker.
It's a great tool, yes.
But all of this information, so when a person understands, and by the way, a lot of people don't understand this. When a person understands that they're in what I call the conversation and relationship business, and everybody watching this, you are in the conversation and relationship business, whether you realize you are or not. Because I don't care how good you are at what you do. If you're really good at what you do, but you don't get that you're in the people business, you might as well be on an island somewhere with a volleyball named Wilson, okay? So a lot of people are really good at what they do for a living, but they don't really get how to connect with other people. And therefore they struggle because they think, well, I've got all these letters after my name. I'm very impressive. I'm very smart. How come my phone isn't ringing off the hook? Well, I can answer that. It's because they don't understand that they're in the people business, right? So I looked at social media around 2003, 2004, just as a communication tool. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, these are communication tools. So I keep it simple. I looked at social media and I said, this is going to help me create relationships with people faster and more deeper. So I think I'm answering the first part of your question there.
Yeah, that answers it perfectly. And actually, as you were saying a few things. So one thing you said was how before the internet, you really relied on person-to-person relationships and really building it from the ground up. And then transitioning to the internet, it's now this way where it's instant communication, where you can learn everything about this person with one glance and build a relationship more from the middle way up, Yeah. So I actually have a question on that. Would you say that it's better or harder for a person that was born after social media and the internet was created to build relationships, if that makes sense? Do you think it's harder or for someone after the internet to build relationships or authentic relationships, or do you think it's easier for it before?
That's a really intelligent question. I don't know that it's harder or easier. I'm just going to say that it's different. And what I mean by that is prior to the invention of the internet, you had to. There was no other option. You had to develop certain interpersonal skills. There's just no way around it. So you had to have eye contact. You had to have listening, sincere listening. You had to have interpersonal skills. I want to mention something that's it kind of answers what you're saying, but it's a little bit on a tangent. About 99% of the work that I do is in the corporate world. About 5 or 6 years ago, I started getting phone calls from colleges. And they would call me and say, Kevin, we see what you're doing. Really what I'm doing is they're saying, Kevin, you're teaching people how to be high touch in a high-tech world. They said, we know that you do most of your work in business, but would you come into our college and talk to our juniors and our seniors and prepare them, both show them how to use LinkedIn so that when they go out into the business world, they've already made some connections and built some relationships. But would you also teach them some of the soft skills? Would you teach them some of the interpersonal skills that they're not necessarily getting because they're staring at their iPhone all day long?
Exactly.
Okay? So I'm not saying that younger people are, terrible at interpersonal skills.
We're not very good.
I'm just saying that they're in a little bit of a different world than people like I was, where we couldn't stare at an iPhone because there was no iPhone, right? So there's certain fundamental people skills that we just naturally learned because we had to, that sometimes now some younger people don't naturally learn, and they have to be taught it just like any other skill. Does that make sense, Gabrielle?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And actually, I mean, the reason why I asked that question was because I do realize that this generation, because we have the internet and because we are on it all the time,
Right.
our interpersonal skills are lacking, and definitely comparing to the previous generations without the internet, it's unbelievable. I mean, kids are not able to have eye contact, or aren't really even aren't able to speak full sentences without kind of being shy and being soft spoken. So I that's the reason why I asked, because I do see that it could be a bit more difficult for this generation to be able to go to networking events and to speak to people, although it actually might be easier for them on social media, because that's what they're used to. That's what they're best at. They can think about responses and talk in that way. But I think that like what you do when you speak to colleges, I think that's really crucial. In order for, I wish that people had done that in high school, that they would have, people come to high schools and speak on this, because it is important and it's lacking. But yeah, you answered the question perfectly.
Can I make one more quick comment on that?
Definitely, for sure.
It's interesting when I'm on a stage and there's an audience, and there's people in the audience that are, let's say, 30 and younger, and then there's people with a lot of gray hair. Okay, so what the feedback that I've gotten from my audiences over the years is that the people that are 30 and younger, they get the technology. They totally get it, right? They can do it with their eyes closed.
Right.
The people that are a little older, they don't. They're learning the technology, but the takeaway from the audience members, and it's been fascinating for people to tell me this, to hear this, is that the younger people are learning how to be high touch in a world that they already understand the technology. The older people are figuring out, all this guy Kevin is telling me is how to take what I've already been doing for many years and just use this new communication platform called social media to be sincere and authentic. So it's kind of paradoxical. It's ironic, because the older people think, oh, I have to learn all this technology. And I say, no, not really. You already get the whole build relationships thing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to show you how to use the technology to create those conversations. The younger people, oh, you already get the technology. Let me show you how to be sincere and authentic. So both age groups are getting something at the same time. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, to see those parallels, but yeah, it's so different.
And sometimes the older people, they think, I need to learn all this technology. And I say, no, you don't. You don't know how to fix a transmission, but you can drive a car just fine, right? So I'm just showing you, I don't know how the electronics inside my iPhone work, right? But I don't have to know how the electronic work. I have to know how to have a good conversation through the iPhone. And you totally get it, Gabrielle.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's incredibly on point, and that actually leads into another question that I had. So I know that there are multiple different kinds of people that are on social media, and there are multiple kinds of people that have troubles with social media. So I have three people three types of people that I'd want you to give a piece of advice for that kind of person. So I'll name the first one, and then you can give a piece of advice on that, and then go on for the other two. So the first one is like the young entrepreneur, or career starter. They're just getting into business, and they don't really know how to handle social media when it comes to what's too personal and what's not personal enough, and trying to find that balance. What advice would you give for somebody that is trying to figure out how to manage social media, where you're still building relationships, where you're still being authentic, but you're not really, without showing too much of everything? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. So, and you tell me, Gabrielle, if my answer is too vague, okay? So a couple of points. I tell my audiences to use what I call the grandma's ear approach.
Okay.
If you wouldn't whisper it into your grandmother's ear, don't post it. And the reason that I say that is because if it's something that you wouldn't whisper into your grandmother's ear, it's probably going to be taken out of context and come back and bite you, or be used against you. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be some, holy person, but just, the funny thing about common sense is it's not common, right? It should be called uncommon sense.
Yes.
Okay. So I always tell people, if you're pausing before you post something, there's probably an intuitive reason why you're pausing. Because you're saying to yourself, I wonder if I should post this. The fact that you're asking yourself, I wonder if I should post this, should be an indication that maybe you shouldn't. I don't know, right? So number one, if you wouldn't whisper it in your grandmother's ear, I would suggest not posting it.
Right.
Here's the other point. I teach what I call an 80-20 rule. And an 80-20 rule is very simple. By the way, most of the social media stuff that I teach is really just a repackaging of interpersonal skills. So the 80-20 rule is this. I don't care what platform you're on. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, doesn't matter. In my opinion, I would suggest that only 20% of the time when we post something, should that thing be related to us or what we do or our product or our service. And the reason for that is because we all know people that every time they open their mouth, they're just talking about themselves. And we'll nod politely because we're nice, polite people, but we're thinking, give me a break. I mean, come on, give me a break, right? And so that tends to be a turn off, not a turn on. Right. So I would suggest to people that about 80% of whatever it is that we're posting should not be about us. It should either be informational, educational, inspirational, or motivational. Not because people need to become motivational speakers, but most people could use a pick-me-up during the day, right? So if we're what I call delivering value, if we're posting things that our clients or our prospects might see value in, not sales pitches, not thinly veiled sales pitches, but if we're posting information that they could go, oh, wow, that's good information. I'm glad that he posted that. And then every once in a while, we mention something about what we do. Most people aren't going to be offended by that because it's just normal, right? But if we talk too much about ourselves or our product or our service, that's just it's going to alienate people. So part of it is just understanding that it is a paradox, like you said, Gabrielle. You want to be personal, but you don't want to overshare, right? Yeah. So, and maybe the answer is just to go to somebody that you know, like, and trust, and say, "Would you look through my feed over the last 14 days and just look back over it and say, I won't be offended. Be honest with me. Am I talking too much about myself? Am I, give me your thoughts on this." Does that help, Gabrielle?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everything you said is so incredibly on point, especially even that last part with going to somebody. I think that's one of the best things that you can do, especially someone that you know, like, and trust, because that's an outside perspective, and that you can, and then from there you can kind of change if it needs to be changed or continue on the path that you're on. But everything that you pointed out, I love that you said it's the 80-20 rule. I think that's one of the ones that I struggle with as well, is making sure that I have personal, but I also have a business, and that it's not that and I'm not oversharing everything that I'm doing, like, oh, I'm doing this and now I'm over here and now I'm doing, but also being able to be personal and showing myself as well and being able to relate to my followers and my audience. That's so on point.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah. So the next person is the hustler, right? So that's the person that's on social media and is just commenting and DMing everyone, and they're trying to just talk to everybody, but it's pretty clear that they're just trying to make sales, or they're just trying to sell their product or whatever it is. So for them, how can what advice would you give to them in order for them to be more authentic, so that they can still make those sales and everything, but be more, I guess, themselves, so to speak?
I do a lot of coaching. Okay. So a lot of people that come to me are kind of like the ones you're describing now. Okay. They're very type A. They're very driven, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But what they don't understand is kind of what we talked about a little earlier. They really don't understand that they're in the people business. Okay. So what I do is I tend to, and this is going to sound a little woo-woo when I say this, but you'll be fine with it. What I tend to do is I tend to slow people down a little bit. Now, type A people at first resist that because they're wired to go faster, right? Bigger, faster, stronger, more profitable, conquer the world. And I get it. I totally get it. I didn't become the top salesperson in the world for 4 separate companies by being, lazy. I get it. Okay. But the irony is that actually slowing down will get you where you want to go faster than almost anything else. Now, when I first say that, some people kind of hear what I'm saying, and some people totally shut me off. They're like, "What is this guy talking about?" And I can explain it in different ways, but nothing is going to get you to the goal faster than sincerely and authentically connecting with another human being. It's just not. And I'm not talking about manipulation. I'm not talking about, reverse psychology or anything deceptive.
Right.
I'm talking about sincerely connecting with people. So the irony, the paradox, is that the answer is right in front of these people, but they don't even see it, right? So depending on how hard I have to shake them to wake them up, I might ask them, you're running Mach 5. You're DMing everybody. You're the hustler. I get it.
Right.
How's it working out? Right? Now, I might have to shake them a little bit, to wake them up, and they go, it's really not working out that well. And then I say, well, have you ever heard of the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result, right? So let's just acknowledge this doesn't mean that you're a bad human. It doesn't mean that you're stupid. Let's just look at it. I don't mean to be clinical, but let's just look at it in terms of activity, results.
Yeah.
You're running Mach 5 with your hairline on fire, and you're not getting the results you want.
Right.
Apparently, that ain't working. Okay? So let's take a little different approach, and let's sincerely and authentically connect with people. So part of the answer to your question is those kind of people need to actually do some personal growth work. They don't need to get better at sales. They need to get better at relating to people, and that usually comes down to their own personal growth. So I'm going to direct them to some books like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I'm going to direct them to some resources to help them connect more with themselves, because when they connect more with themselves, they're going to just easily connect more with other people. Yeah. The people, and again, this is going to sound woo-woo and very life coachy, but who cares? The people that are having a hard time connecting with other people, it's not rocket science to figure out why that is. The reason they're having a hard time connecting with other people is because they're actually having a hard time connecting with their own sincere self. But they may or may not be ready for that shaking. And sometimes you have to kind of shake them lightly, and sometimes you got to shake them hard. Am I kind of answering what you're asking, Gabrielle?
Absolutely. I mean, that kind of advice, I think it works really for anybody, because honestly, that is something that is important for anybody that's in sales or just needs to connect with somebody else. That understanding of your own personal self first, and then you can go out into the world and connect with other people, because then you can go out and be as authentic, and people can know you, and you can know yourself, and then you can know them. So I really like that answer a lot, and I think, yeah, it's incredibly on point. That was perfect. So the last one is the traditionalist, and you talked about this a little bit, which the people that have the gray hairs in your audience, the ones that are used to and even some that are people that are in this generation, but they know sales as the knock on doors, the cold call. That's what they learned. That's what they may be used to. What advice would you give to them to help them to transition into a frame of mind of using social media, still, as you said, using the interpersonal skills, still working with what they know, but being able to transfer that knowledge into a more digital world?
Those are actually, in my opinion, those are the easiest people to work with.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because they already understand that they're in the conversation and relationship business. And I keep coming back to that, Gabrielle, because I always tell people I'm a one-trick pony, but it's a very profitable trick.
Oh yeah.
So I keep things simple. KISS, keep it simple, sweetie. Okay. So for people that have a little bit of gray in their hair, I ask them some questions to remind them that they're in the people business, and it doesn't take, they figure that out pretty fast, right? So then I explain to them, well, if you're in the people business, if you were to meet somebody on the street and start a conversation, you wouldn't just jump into what you do for a living. You would start to build a relationship. And they go, yeah, of course, Kev. I say, if you were to talk to somebody on the phone, you wouldn't try to jump through the phone and down their throat and sell them something. They go, no. You got to build a relationship. So what I'm doing is I'm showing them, whether you talk to people on the phone, face to face, whatever you do, you understand that it's all about relationships. And they go, yeah. I say, great. Then all I'm going to do is just show you a new tool, whether it's a phone, a paper and pen, a typewriter, 2 cans and a string, smoke signals, social media. It doesn't matter. When I show them that this is nothing more than a new updated communication platform, which actually has a lot of very cool bells and whistles built into it, but at its core, it's a communication platform. When I really get them to understand that, then they very quickly understand, okay, so what you're telling me, Kev, is I can use these tools to find my best prospects, and I can start a conversation with them without being slick or salesy. And I say, that's exactly right. And then I tell them, and one of your goals is you want to transition off of social media, start the relationship on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, but get it to a telephone, cup of coffee, a face-to-face meeting if possible, a Skype call like this where we can actually see each other, right? Get it from just texting to some kind of personal connection, because you already know, Mr. or Mrs. Old-timer, you already know that you're in the relationship business. Let's use social media to find the people and initiate the conversation, and then let's get it offline as fast as we can to really connect with people. So we're taking the high tech, we're blending it with the high touch, and when they do that, they are off to the races. Does that help?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that so like these 3 people, like these 3 types of people that you've given advice to, ones that I've reached out to, that I've been in contact with, that I've seen, and I think the answers that you gave, I will 100% help them. You gave me more than I expected, which was perfect, just perfect.
Oh, you're very kind. You're very kind, Gabrielle. You're making me feel really good early in the morning on a Thursday.
I'm glad. So I'm wondering now, actually, I'll preface this by saying I had someone on the show, a guest who talks about social media marketing. So she has clients that helps, or she helps her clients to market their companies and things on social media, right? And develop their brands. And she was talking a lot about, the same idea of how social media has definitely changed the game when it comes to sales and how we connect with others and how we build relationships, and how it is a bit different than how it used to be. So I think that when it comes to the relationship side, when it comes to building, relationships on social media, like we were saying, that authenticity is 100% important. And you gave the advice to the hustler. You're talking about understanding the self first before going into trying to sell to other people, because that's how you become the most authentic. I want to just touch on how important that is as it relates to the UV effect. So as my audience knows, the UV effect is about understanding the distinct qualities of your company, of you as an individual, that makes you stand out, and how it can either make you money, how it can help you to build relationships, how it can so on and so forth. So I just wanted to, I guess, point or add a little, or at least ask a bit more about that one in terms of how we can connect our unique value, right, to social media. So whether that be what we're posting or how we're relating with other people, how can we make that connection? Does that make sense?
Make your question a little more specific.
Okay, so let's say there's somebody that's on social media and they have, let's say, a product, right? And they are, maybe they're selling, I don't know, t-shirts, right? What can they do to almost convey their unique value? What makes their t-shirt company special? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Couple thoughts, and tell me if I'm going down the right road or the wrong road. I think if you're going to go fishing, it makes sense to go where the fish are. Okay? So if I were selling t-shirts, what I would do is I would ask myself, okay, where are the people that would probably see the most value in t-shirts? Now, that's kind of a broad one, but let's go with it.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of people are unaware of actually how specific, granular, focused you can get on these websites. So if I literally went into LinkedIn or Facebook and I typed in the word t-shirts, these social media platforms are search engines. So if I type t-shirt into LinkedIn, it's going to pull up every single person on LinkedIn, 500 million people on LinkedIn worldwide, 2 to 5 new people per second, 1.94 billion people on Facebook. They say we're going to hit 2 billion people on Facebook in the next 45 days. So these sites are search engines. If I type t-shirt into there, it's going to pull up every single person that has t-shirt either on their profile or in a conversation thread. Now, most people don't know what I just told you there. So if I want to find people that might see value in what I do, if I wanted to do a 20-mile geographic search or a 2,000-mile, if I want to do a 20-mile geographic search of Baltimore, for anybody in the last 14 days that has used the word t-shirt in a tweet, most people don't know that Twitter has the ability to do that. No. So I teach this stuff, right? So if you're going to go fishing, go where the fish are. So the first part that I want to answer your question is your listeners, your viewers need to understand how to use these tools to find their best prospects. I help people do that almost down to eye color. If you told me, Kevin, my ideal prospect is a veterinarian within 50 miles of Tulsa that went to Rutgers University and likes line dancing. I'm just making this stuff up. If you told me that, I could help you find those people in about 30 seconds. Wow. Okay? So once we find your ideal prospects, the next step is we just have to start a conversation with them. So again, not a sales pitch, but a conversation. So I think it helps your viewers to understand that by understanding the technical aspects of these sites, how to use them to find their ideal prospects or referral sources, and then creating relationships with those people, that's going to accelerate them much faster toward their goal. As far as the unique value, man, there's a lot of, you're kind of talking about branding. Yeah. You're kind of talking about marketing. There's like a 5-hour answer to that question.
It's definitely a big question. And I will say that with the answer that you gave was definitely on point when it comes to that technical side. All I'm looking for when it comes to the unique value part is almost in a sense trying to connect with it and allow other people to connect with you via that, if that makes sense. So so I know it's a big question, but what a lot of people have issues with when it comes to promoting themselves, being on social media, sales, whatever it is, especially when it comes to social media, is staying true and authentic to their style, to their message, to their vision. Yeah. And so all I'm really asking is, do you have any advice for somebody that is trying to keep that authenticity and stay true to their unique value, to their message, while trying to connect with other people?
I think I'm going to sound like I'm beating this horse again, Gabrielle. I think that the more that a person is comfortable with who they are, just naturally, the more they're going to come across as authentic, and they're going to have their UV show up. All right. So it's no more complicated than that. But we live in a society that's so fast-paced, yes, and it's so easy to get seduced by big dollar signs, exactly, or whatever. A lot of my work is actually helping people just become more grounded in who they are. Because the more we know who we are, the value that we deliver, and the more we stay true to that, the more everything else is just going to kind of work itself out. And again, that might sound kind of vague to your viewers, but it's not. It's not vague. If you don't have to remind a fish that they're a fish. A fish wakes up in the morning. I don't know if fish sleep, but a fish wakes up in the morning and it's not wondering, am I a zebra? Am I an elephant? No, you're a fish. So a fish doesn't have to think about, okay, what does a fish do? Oh yeah, they swim. A fish just swims. Well, most people, because we're bombarded with 24/7 news, social media, all this stuff, a lot of people, they lose their grounding. They forget, or maybe they just need to, I need to make the mortgage payment. I need to make the money because I got to pay the bills. So it's very natural, especially in our Mach 5 society, for people to kind of lose touch with who they are.
Yeah.
So I guess what I would say is people need to do work on themselves, personal growth work on a daily basis. They need to, if they're Christians, they need to spend time in the Word. If they're not Christians, I don't care. They need to spend time focusing on their own personal growth, because their business growth is going to be a reflection of their personal growth.
100%.
The person whose sales are going up and down like this, that's usually an indication that they're in touch with who they are, they lose touch with who they are. They're in touch with who they are, they lose touch with them. Now that might sound kind of vague to people, but I'm not being vague. I mean, stick around for a while, get some gray in your hair, you'll figure out that what I'm saying is true. So life is an inside job, and it's a long-term game. If you're not growing, you're rotting.
Yeah.
There's no status quo. So, I'm older than you, but I'm growing to become the potential that God gave me to become.
Yeah.
So the answer is the answer is a long answer, but people need to work on themselves. When they work on themselves and they figure out how to stay grounded in their unique value and just deliver it and deliver it and deliver it, knowing that occasionally they'll get kicked in the teeth by life. I'm not saying it's all going to be roses, but people have to remember they're playing a long game. They're playing a long game. Yeah. If you do, I go back to kind of like Jesus with the throwing the seeds on the ground.
Yes.
Some of the seeds fall on bad soil and they don't grow. Right. Some of the seeds grow a little bit, but then the wind and the storm comes and blows it away. But you and I can't control the weather. All we can control is planting the seeds. So if we plant the seeds and we help nourish them as much as we can, God will do the rest. And where people get stressed out is because they're trying to play God.
Yeah.
They're trying to make the seed grow. You can't make the seed grow. You can just plant it and go plant another one. Go plant another one. Go plant another one. What people do is they plant the seed and then they mother hen it, right? Come on, I planted the seed. Grow, grow, grow. Just keep planting seeds. Our job is to plant the seeds and be of good, to be joyful and to spread the love. Again, I'm yakking now. So does that help?
Yes, definitely. I think for me, the reason why I did this podcast was almost in the sense how you said fish don't need a reminder of that they're fish, but with people, we almost need this constant reminder of who we are, right? Yeah. So that's why your answer is incredibly on point, and then it really does answer a lot of why I started the podcast, why I having someone like you on the show, because we need the kind of reminders of what we're trying to offer to people, what our messages, what our visions are, because as you said, we're in this Mach 5 society, and there's always these new ideas, this new way of thinking, this new person you can be, this new thing that you can try, and it can get very confusing, it can be very overwhelming. So definitely your answer is 100% on point, because we do need to always, at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, come back to what we believe and what we're made of, what we're capable of, what we're put on the earth to do. So definitely, yeah, I agree.
Everybody watching this, you are a beautiful divine creation of God, designed for greatness, and you deserve the desires of your heart. Now, when I say that might sound like, he's trying to make me feel good. No, I'd like for you to feel good, but I'm not going to lose any sleep if you don't. I'm just telling you the truth. Mm-hmm. You're a beautiful divine creation of God, designed for greatness, and you deserve the desires of your heart. And the more that I remind myself of that, the more I show up authentically as a servant to deliver value and so I don't think it's any more complicated than that. But the things that are easy, things that are simple to understand are also simple to forget.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really loved that answer. Also because by saying what you said, well, let me just say that a lot of people, when they think of business, they're thinking it's just strictly business and that it's professional and it's like
Yeah.
but there is this huge aspect of mental and mindset that needs to go into it and that needs to that correlates with it. And as you clearly said, talking about how we are divine creatures and we were put on the earth for a reason. I think even that idea needs to be in mind when in business. That needs to be in that thought process because, as you said, again, being that that authentic person and being able to be yourself in an environment and be confident in what you were bringing and who you are comes from that understanding that you are on purpose. So I love that. So I want to actually go into your book now, the social media revolution. I love that title, by the way, the social media revolution. I want to know why was this important for you to write this book? You talk about social media and how it's changed how it's changed sales and how it's created this whole new kind of creative sales world. Why was this important for you to write?
That's a really good question, and my answer might surprise you. I had no interest in writing the book whatsoever. So what happened was I got a phone call one day. So my answer is actually going to prove a couple of good points for your viewers.
Okay.
As we go out and we do the things we're doing in social media, we never really know where that's going to go. It's the nature of the internet, right? You could post something, somebody could share it. So we live in this global world now where you never know, right? You and I are recording this video right now. Somebody could watch this 20 years from now and it could bless them 20 years from now, right? So we never know. So as I've been active on social media for about 14 years, as I'm posting the things that I'm doing and sharing and delivering value and blah, 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 you never know who's watching.
Yeah.
That's important for your listeners to hear because as they deliver value, that's going to come back to them in many, many ways that are blessings. But we don't do it because now the universe owes us, right? We do it because that's just us delivering value to the world. So I get a phone call in 2011 that goes like this. Kevin, my name is Stephanie Frerick. I'm an associate editor at McGraw-Hill in New York City. We've been reading your LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter posts for 6 months. We've read all of your weekly newsletters. We've already done our homework. We've looked at all your YouTube videos. We know exactly who you are. I'm calling you to ask you if you will accept a $5,000 advance to write a 250-page book for salespeople. Now, I thought I was getting punked. I thought it was a friend of mine, goofing with me. It took her 5 minutes to convince me that she really was the editor. So that's when I agreed to write the book. If I had not gotten that phone call, to be quite frank, I don't know that I would have written the book, right? So that helps your listeners because it's an example of when you deliver value to the world. Most people are probably familiar with the idea of karma, right? And basically karma is nothing more than a fancy way of saying what goes around comes around, right? So if you pay it forward, some of it's going to come back to you. But again, we don't pay it forward so that now the world owes us. We just pay it forward because that's the way we live our lives, right? The life we lead is the lesson we teach. We preach a better sermon with our life than with our lips, right? So I wrote the book. It's done very well. I got on a side tangent, Gabrielle, I got an email last week from a woman in Italy, a businesswoman who said, I'm going through a master's MBA program in an Italian university in Italy. And I just wanted to let you know, Kevin, that we're loving using your book as a textbook in our class. Textbook in your class? What are you talking? I didn't know my book was being used as a textbook in Italy. So you never know where the value that you deliver is going to go. But it was fun to write it. It's been a blessing. The principles that are in it are timeless. So whether somebody reads it 5 years from now, because sometimes people call me or they email me and they go, Kevin, I see your book is 5 or 6 years old. Is it still relevant? And I say, well, have you heard of the Bible? Right? And I say, I'm not equating my book with the Bible. But the Bible's like 2,000 years old, okay? So if it's written on principles that are timeless,
Yes.
it's going to be timeless.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's been great. Did I answer? I'm not sure if I answered your question on that,
Definitely
Gabrielle.
did. I think one aspect that you said was how you said that they look through your social media, they look through all your posts and everything, and they look through the emails that you would send out, and that I think that really speaks to the idea of having this collective vision that you put out, the value that you put out, and making it clear, and even talking about how that when we were talking about the Mach 5 society and how there's all these different ideas, but what you've done is you've been able to kind of have this clear vision throughout, what you speak about. You call it the one trick pony, but it's a very profitable trick. But you use that and you stick to that, what you know there, and you bring that with. You add new things, but you still stick to that specific vision, that specific unique value that you do bring.
Sure.
So, and I think that really speaks to that point of being able to understand what you do want to bring, understand your unique value, and to stick with it, so that when people look at everything that you're creating, everything that you're putting out there, they're able to see this collective vision, that they're able to see it, and they then be able to come to you in confidence that you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
The other thing you talked about there is also being able to understanding that you never know who's watching. And so, like what you said with having, someone having your book in Italy in a course in your class, that's actually happened to me too with my book before, and I think it's that really does open your eyes to like how you can kind of change things without actually even touching it at all, and like what you can do, even positively or negatively. And that's also a really good point that you brought there with the book. So I think, and it's funny that you didn't even really even think about writing the book. It really wasn't your idea, but it still was important for you to write, which it came to fruition, even though you never even thought that it was supposed to happen. Which is
life is funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if we wake up every day and we say, God, use me, put the people in my path, help me serve things, and for type A people, what I'm about to say next, sometimes it can frustrate them. But I say it to kind of give them peace that if you just wake up every day, and the first thing you do is you say, thank God for another day, right? And you say, whatever comes my way today, whether it's good or bad, I'm just going to show up as a servant, and I'm going to do the best that I can.
Yeah.
If we will do that over time, things have a natural way of working themselves out. And amazing blessings come from places you never would have expected it, But it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, staying grounded on, okay, what's my message? What's my unique value? And how can I stay focused on that? Yeah.
100%.
It's huge. Yeah. It's really clarity is what it is. When you're clear on who you are and the value you deliver, as things kind of bounce you around, and they will, but the more that we can stay centered on who we are and our unique value, and we play a long game, we're going to win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And before we kind of close out and everything, I actually want to ask, is there anything else that you'd like to share? Anything new that's coming up for you? Any products or services that you have offering? I want to give you a chance to talk about those.
Well, thanks. It's kind of you to ask that. I'm starting to work on another book, so that'll be coming out down the road a little bit. Other than products and services, I'm pretty simple. I speak, train, coach, and consult. If anybody has an interest in what I do, go to kevinknebl.com.
I'll be linking below.
Yeah, Knebl. It really looks like it needs another vowel. Okay, kevinknebl.com. I always tell people, look, if I can help in any way, I'm always a phone call or an email away. Years ago, I decided, Gabrielle, that on any day that I'm not running to an airplane, I would build an hour or 2 hours into my schedule just as a way to pay it forward and to help people, not because I'm some, Mother Teresa or Gandhi. I've been very, very blessed, so I think it helps to bless other people too. So I always build some time into my calendar to help people out. So people email me and say, Kevin, can I get an hour with you on GoToMeeting, and maybe you can help me work through. So for your viewers, if you think that a conversation with me would ever be helpful, I'm a phone call or an email away.
I'm very sure that plenty of my viewers would be
Please.
would benefit from a conversation with you.
Please feel free to shoot me a LinkedIn invitation. Mention that you saw me on Gabrielle's show. Please feel free to follow me on Facebook or subscribe to my newsletter. But that's about it. I just appreciate you asking me to be on the show, Gabrielle. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, I really appreciated talking with you. I mean, you touched on so many points, and I actually expected when I was going into the interview, I expected to have this kind of technical-ish kind of interview about sales and business, and it went to a completely different direction, in which I really appreciated. I enjoyed talking to you about this and how it really did connect on the spiritual level, on a mental level, and then also in business as well. I enjoyed it. And by the way, your links will be down below to social media and your website and your book. So definitely be sure to check out Mr. Kevin Knebl. And thank you again for joining me.
Thanks, Gabrielle. It's wonderful speaking with you. Hug your mom for me. I think I met your mom about 4, 5, 6 years ago.
Yes.
What a sweetheart she is. And your dad too. Yeah. So tell them I said hi and thanks. God bless from Colorado. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the UV Effect podcast. I hope that you enjoyed this interview with Mr. Kevin Knebl. All the insight and information that he shared, I'm sure that you were able to pull out something from this interview, because I know I was. If you're listening to this on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitchers, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment letting us know how you like the UV Effect podcast. And then head on over to GabrielleJordanInspires.com/021. That's GabrielleJordanInspires.com/021. And you can check out all of Mr. Kevin Knebl's information and links to his website, his social media. All of that will be on that page, as well as leave us a comment letting us know how you liked this episode. You can also head over to Instagram to follow us at the UV Effect and check out the upcoming guests, the quotes that we pulled from the episodes, and some fun snips and clips that we have from the interviewing process and things like that. Once again, thank you for joining me, and I hope that I will see you next week. Bye.